Well, hello everyone. It's Miss Darling in the studio again. Welcome. Very, very happy you're here. It always makes me happy. And so today I thought, what can I do? So many of you seem to be more interested in masterboards than other topics, and so I thought, what else could I teach you about masterboards? And because I'm in a desperate mood, a bit of desperation to try and use up some of my ephemera and papers and whatnot that I have in my studio, making it almost impossible for me to walk around. I thought, well, maybe let's try making a masterboard with only ephemera. And so I pulled out some of my little containers here that have a bunch of ephemera. This one has neutral colors, and this one has some reds, blues, greens in it. And here we are back to neutrals again. Just all kinds of different types of ephemera, from text to, I don't know. Well, we'll kind of look at this and maybe talk a little bit about this one, and then we will proceed with making another one. So, as you can see, there's a wide variety of ephemera pieces on here. We've got colorful ones kind of sprinkled throughout. Have a round one. Now, anything that's round is going to draw a lot more attention to itself, so be aware of that, and you want to put those close to a focal point on the page because they are so strong. So if you were to fold this in half, you can see that that round one there is in a good position. And the same kind of goes for these octagon shapes. They're kind of just a squared off round version, and so they attract a lot of attention as well. So you see I have them rather higher up on the board and in good position for where a focal point would likely be if I was looking for one. Now, you'll see that there's a lot of neutral colors in here, but then there's a lot of other colors. We've got blue. And so what you want to do is, when you have a specific color that you want to, maybe highlight or have it stand out a bit, you want to use several of them, and you want to sprinkle them here and there around the entire surface. So you see we've got some blue here and here and over here and down here and up here. So, we've kind of moved it around. The same with the red. You can see where there's red influence kind of sprinkled around. There's some green, but not much. And, and it's in kind of different shades of green. So we've got this cool green here, and we've got something warm here, and so on and so forth. So you just want to take like kinds, let me put it that way, whether the connection is color or whether it's shape or whether it's something else that binds two or more things together as sort of a group. Just make sure you sprinkle them generously around the whole surface, and then you'll achieve, balance. After all, it's very cluttered, but because it's arranged very specifically, it really cuts down on the look of and feel of being cluttered. It's, as my sister once said to me, it's an organized clutter. And so that's what we have going on here. Now, what use is a masterboard like this? Well, you could cut it up easily, make copies of it if you don't want to destroy your original. That's what I generally tend to do. I'll make a copy, and then I will draw on it the different shapes, like maybe I'm making a bunch of tags, or I'm doing a combination of tags and postcards and art cards and bookmarks. And so I'll lay my templates on top and just try to make the best use of the surface in the particular images. And when you have something that's this busy overall, then each of those little items that you've cut out are going to look fabulous. They're, it's not going to be a dull, boring, bare area. They're going to be well filled. And so this is a good way of doing that and winding up with some really interesting combinations, or should I say compositions, because when you do it that way, you're not predetermining what your layout, what your composition is going to be. And so you wind up with things that you probably never would have done yourself, but they're fantastic. And they just sort of happen naturally or by accident, whatever. Anyway, now you could also use this board. This is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock, and it's a very, light beigey brown. And the reason I chose that was because I knew I was going to wind up having the background show through. And I didn't want white. I didn't want off-white. I wanted it to be more blended, and so I chose this color here, which I have in stock, and it worked out very nice. Now, when we make the next one, I have no idea what we're going to wind up with. I have no idea if we're going to wind up with similar colors to these, which could then be a companion. More than likely, it's going to be quite different in terms of color and dynamic, and probably be something that will stand on its own. But it would be nice if there's enough to come out with a companion. I always try to make companions in the masterboards when I'm making them, so that I have more than 2 pages. Like if I was to divide this into 2, so I would have more than 2 pages that could work together in a journal, and that brings cohesiveness to the journal. So, but we'll just have to wait and play around and see what we come up with. So here's another sheet of that cardstock, and I'm going to be doing a lot of gluing, so I'm going to remove this top piece here and get down to a grungier one. I had that top one there just, to make my thumbnail photos. And you want a clean background when you're shooting a photo. Okay, now I have pre-scored, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I have pre-scored this sheet of cardstock right down the middle. And the reason I do that is I want to know if I were to divide this in 2 and wind up with 2 full pages, I want to know where the center is, so I can decide as I'm gluing whether I want something to overlap from one side to the other, or whether I want to make sure I stay left or right of center, if that makes sense. So scoring it's not going to show, and it's an easy way to help me gauge my layout. Alright, now if I start first with some of my more colorful supply here, I think we'll have a better chance of winding up with maybe something that can companion up with the other one. And so I've got a lot of red things here. Let's see what we like. I'm going to remove all the ones that are just blank frames. I love dates and numbers, and I prefer numbers to letters because numbers don't spell anything out that you might not want. Letters are a little bit more restricting, for me anyway. So I got this coupon. It is really hard to find ephemera that's in a portrait format as opposed to a landscape format, and so I really treasure whenever I wind up with some vertically shaped portrait formatted. Like you see in this one, I only had one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I can't, 10. Only 10 out of around 30 some. So only about 30% of the ephemera here was in a portrait format. The rest are all landscape. Landscape is by far the most prevalent. There's a nice big number. I just kind of, initially pull out, just things that I like. And I'm not looking for anything that draws too much attention to itself. If it is really grabbing all the attention, I will usually pass, because I want my ultimate masterboard to, be balanced and not have anything stick out like a sore thumb. So when you introduce a new color, make sure you have several of them in that color vein. Otherwise, that if you only have one in a different color from everything else, it's going to draw too much attention to itself, more than likely. And that can just instantly throw off your overall balance. So be careful about that. Here's another one of those octagon shapes. And you want to vary the sizes. It's not just about color. You want to vary your sizes. This is a little too muted and hard to read, so I'm going to remove that. You want to vary your sizes, your shapes, and your colors. So I've got a good variety going on here. This is blue. So I'm going to push all my reds over to one side. That gives me a nice pool to pick from. And now we're going to kind of look at some of these blue ones that are in here and pick out a number of those. Here's a nice green. Now this particular little container doesn't have anything that's picturesque. Really, it's mostly just things, shapes with numbers on them. And that's by design, because, when I'm cutting them out is when I determine what container they're going to go into. And I like to be somewhat organized in what I'm doing. Obviously, there's not as many blue items in here. as there were red, but we'll see what we got. That's gonna just jump out too much. Take too much attention. You want to give yourself enough pieces to choose from so you can eliminate and, you know, kind of move things around and play with things. But you don't want to give yourself so much that you just can't make a decision about anything. So, you know, watch out for giving yourself over selection. Now here we got some blues that are more muted and soft. So we'll pick out some of these. We don't want everything the same intensity. So you want to, if you can, mix up some darker colors with some lighter colors. That gives you some variety in depth as well as interest. And, you know, see, you don't want it to look like too repetitive. Okay, so here's a nice large vertically shaped or portrait shape here that can be very usable. And here's some more interesting varieties. So we're going to pull all of these out for consideration and then audition them and see where we go. We're getting into a little bit of teal, kind of a cross between the blue and the green. We've got some teal going on. Okay, that pretty much exhausts this one. So now we'll look at some more neutral ones to throw into the mix, as they are a little more versatile because of the color. So what have we got in here? Let's move you over here. Okay, I'm going to move my blues kind of over to the side, and my green, got a few greens, not much. And we got our reds over here. Okay, so now we're into the brown tone neutrals. I used one of those already. So we've got a lot of word things going on. We'll pull a few of those out. Some of these smaller words. Did the butterflies already. I like some of those. Okay. Okay, I used this one already, these two already in the other one, so I don't want to duplicate. I don't know if I have one of those. Attitude. That's maybe too strong. Okay, well, I've got another one here. Let's look through and see what we find. Okay. Don't worry, got plenty more where this came from. Alright, here's more green. So maybe we'll just pull out a little more of that for fun. But just because we pull it out doesn't mean we're obligated to use it. So, you know, it's just there to help us see what works best as we play with all this good stuff. You can see I've done a lot of cutting while I was watching TV through the years. This is just a small sample of what I've got, but you know, it'll feel good to use some of this up because no point in it going to waste simply because I just don't get around to looking at any of it. So here's some interesting kind of, they're landscapes, but they're kind of skinny. Yeah, I'm just looking for different sizes and shapes and fun pieces that, you know, so make sure you have a good supply of what we would call, you know, big ones, and a good supply of medium size ones, and a good supply of small ones or tiny ones that can be inserted in different places. And we're going to be doing quite a bit of overlapping too. So we will overlap some pieces and not other pieces. And it's just boils down to be, you know, your personal choice. So you're going to find me doing things that you wouldn't do or that you never would have thought of, and that's okay. You know, to each his own. You do you and I'll do me, and we'll both be happy. Okay, well, I think that's enough of this. So I would like to find more along, you know, of this type than I have, because I think they will serve as a good grounding for adding all of the smaller bits and pieces. And so I'm going to stop the video here and get some others of my little containers, and we can look through those. Okay, I'm back. Alright, so we got neutrals here, blues, green, red up here. Okay, let's see if there's anything in here. This does not look promising. Everything's a little too faded out. Okay. Too big. You don't want a single piece to dominate. Might be too big. There's something nice blue. Possibility. mostly just too large. Let's take a look here. These are, mostly cuttings, leftover bits and bobs from other projects I've done. And so, I tend not to throw things away because you never know when you're gonna find something that's perfect for something else you're doing. Here's a few things that could be inserted. Not too big, not too small, not too strong. And something blue. Some of them look, pretty washed out. And if they're too faded, it doesn't really help you to use them. They just wind up looking, from a distance, they wind up looking like, just an empty spot. And we don't want anything to feel just really empty. I'm going to maybe do some of these lined bits. I'm not using anything freeform like this because it too easily, you have to kind of pick, am I going to go with cut edges or am I going to go with torn freeform edges? And try not to mix the two because it just doesn't feel right when you do that. Little tip there. Stay with your cut edges if that's what you start out with. Okay, well, that's enough looking for now. Let's work with what we've got pulled out here and see how far it takes us, and then if we need to do some more grubbling, we can do that down the road. So I'm going to start out with the making spaces for some of the bigger pieces, particularly from the neutral stack here, but also work in at the same time some of the larger pieces from the colored sections. I want to make sure I'm got the whole thing in frame. Alright, and so from these blue ones, some of our larger pieces. This is going to attract a lot of attention. I really like it though, but I'm not sure it's usable because it's just so dark. But we'll see, because we could balance it with, when you've got two that are dark like that, maybe you'll want to make them a focal point, one on one side and one on the other, and that can work out. So we're not going to throw them out just yet, simply because they're strong. Oh, got 2 of those. Okay, those are all small, so I'll put them over there. I've only got 1 large one in my green pile. Turn it right side up. Now, when I start laying things out, I like to get my corners in there first. And because, you know, corners are not only a little more difficult because they are corners, but you want to, you know, that's going to be the part that frames your overall composition. So we've got a large composition we're working with here. And so I want to make sure that I have some reasonably strong pieces to anchor my corners. Okay, from here on, I'm going to pretty much work in silence because I'll probably want to speed this up, and if I'm talking, I can't put it into fast mode for you to cut down on the amount of time this takes, and it does take quite a bit of time. So I'm going to go silent unless I come across a specific tip that is important enough to break the silence. I will break in, but other than that, enjoy the music and, you know, just kind of watch what I'm doing. Okay, I think I'm going to call this done. Obviously, it doesn't look anything at all like the first one. Let me point out some of the differences. In the first one, there's a lot of background that shows around some of the imagery. In this one, there's no background showing at all. And that's partially because I used a lot more big ones that just filled more of the space quicker. And so, but this one has its own unique style and the other one has its own unique. And I just want to point out, the two dark blue ones I decided to keep, and with the idea that this would be two different pages in a journal. I could cut them apart or fold them and have them appear at different places within a signature. And so I put them up high, a little bit higher, and so they make a nice focal point for that particular side, page. Okay, so if that was my page, that's how it would look. And the opposite side would look like this. Okay, so, and you can see blue is distributed all around the substrate. So is the red. There's more blue than there is red. One color should dominate, and then you have a secondary color. I decided to eliminate the green altogether and just stick with the three colors: the red, the blue, and the neutral. So, and I wanted to also point out that, remember I talked about circles or the octagons attracting a lot of attention to themselves. So that's why you'll find this near the focal point, and over here a circle one, you'll find it near the focal point as well. And so, yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this. If you found it helpful to you, please give the video a like and subscribe, and leave me a comment and tell me what you thought and what it is you're working on. And if you want to ask me to do particular subjects, put that in the comment section so I can consider doing a video on a topic of your choice. And other than that, thanks so much for watching and being here through the whole thing. I appreciate it so much. And that said, this is Miss Darling calling this a wrap. Bye-bye.